What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of NBA Crunch Time, sponsored by Fanduel. I'm your host, TJ Zwarich, joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got a lot of people in the YouTube chat already fired up about the Saturday booth. It's the three T's: TJ, Tim, and Taylor. Joined first off by Tim Buell. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing well. You telling me that you got quite the UFC sweat going on. Is that what I heard?
Weirdly enough, I got a UFC sweat going on. I couldn't know less about UFC. I haven't watched a fight in a few years. I don't know the scoring system, but I was producing our MMA Crunch Time show today, and I just plugged in all five of Mike Brown's kind of core plays today, or not core, more of conviction, as they were tournament plays. But I plugged in 5 of those, and then Liam popped in for Squirrel because Squirrel's traveling for the King of the Beach this week. Shout out to Squirrel, shout out to Luch. Good luck to both of them at the King of the Beach. And Liam was in, and Liam had like a big upset pick, and he was 5% owned. I plugged him in, and he had a first round knockout. And so apparently I'm one fight away from being optimal right now if the last fight goes my way. But I guess the 100K to first $15 contest filled this morning at 9 a.m. and I made the team while I was producing the show. So only got into a 5K to first contest, but still a pretty exciting sweat, especially because it was a $30 team. So fingers crossed on that one. Joined as well by Taylor Smith, writing the Core Plays articles today. How you doing, Taylor?
Doing well. Ready to get into it.
Had a, just in general, fun little sleep set of sleep and DFS combos for me the last couple days, because this MMA thing happened while I was taking a nap today. And then last night, Taylor, we had a fun little rivalry about my guy James Harden in tournaments. I stacked him and Van Vliet in my single entry. I went to bed. I was winning no money. I woke up in the morning and everything doubled up because of a strong second half. So hopefully we can keep that going into today. Tim, why don't you start us off with a little bit of a overview of the slate?
Yeah, just a pretty small slate. Not a ton of news. We lost Zion earlier in the day. He's going to be for rest purposes. So we got a little bit of value on the Pelicans. The Bucks are down a couple of wings, so they're a little thinner than normal. But the big piece of news that is yet to hit is the Curry news. That's a big piece of news that we're probably not going to get till after lock. I don't know really what to do about that. My feeling is that he's going to play, but I don't know. That's the only kind of like real huge piece of news that we're still waiting on. I'm also curious to see like what the Spurs starting lineup's going to be, because I really do want to play Champagnie, but only if he starts. And I think that's what you said in your expert survey too, right, TJ?
Yeah, only if he starts, because you never really know with those Spurs minutes if they don't.
Right, exactly. So I'd like to see that starting lineup, but that's not going to happen. So yeah, I mean, it seems to be a relatively kind of like calm news day, other than potentially the Curry bombshell at the end of the night. So yeah.
And Taylor, what are your kind of thoughts on this Curry situation? You wrote the Core Plays article today. You've had your finger on the pulse. What do you think about the Curry situation?
Yeah, Kerr said that he's got a good chance to play, so I think he will. I'm just assuming he will. I'm not playing for him to be out, so I would be surprised if he sits at this point.
Yep, I think so too. That makes a lot of sense. Let's begin over on FanDuel today. Crunch Time is sponsored by FanDuel. Bet $5 on any money line. Get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. I might be getting as fast as Kevin Roth is with that one, and only on one or two NBA Crunch Time hosting a week, so I'm pretty proud of that. Let's start with FanDuel. Tim, why don't you take us through a cash game build, go in position by position, and then Taylor, since you were, of course, on the Core Play articles today, feel free to give your cash game input as well. We got Desmond Bain, Zach Collins, and Jacob Gilliard as core plays here on FanDuel today. Starting at the point guard position, do you agree with Gilliard, Tim? And then who are you pairing with him?
Yeah, definitely agree with Gilliard. I would like to get up to somebody a little bit more expensive, but I think I'm going to prioritize my salary at other positions. So I'm actually going to be going Gilliard and Mike Conley. That's what I'm going to be doing. But I could completely understand if people want to go Gilliard and Kyrie. I think you could go Gilliard and Dyson Daniels also. And I think if you really want to save at other positions, you could go Gilliard and Luka. I think it is possible to play Luka today. But for me, for cash, it's going to be Gilliard and it's going to be Mike Conley. Those are my two cash game plays.
Taylor, if you have to choose a second piece, Mike Conley, Dyson Daniels, and Jeremy Sohan, which one of these three are you going with?
In cash, I would go probably with Dyson Daniels. Just kind of, he's starting 2 starters down for the Pelicans, but I think Conley is also fine. Conley's more of a cash guy anyway, so if you want to do that, I have no qualms with that.
Daniels, if you can afford him, but if that $400 gets you somebody else, no problem with making the pivot to Conley. Tim, shooting guard position, we got Desmond Bain in here at one of our positions. Grizzlies are now going to be without Marcus Smart as well. Who do you got here alongside Desmond Bain at the shooting guard position?
Yeah, you're 100% playing Bain and catch today, whether it be shooting guard or a small forward. Pat Connaughton, I mentioned how the Bucks are a little bit thin at the wing position. He's 4,000 on FanDuel. I think that's a really fair price. I think that somebody like Herbert Jones would be fine in the mid range, and same thing with Klay Thompson. And you could take that chance that maybe potentially Curry sits, but either way, I think Klay is a decent enough play on FanDuel that you could play him in cash. If you have the money, I would prefer playing Anthony Edwards over Kyrie, even though we have Kyrie projected better. But that would be just about it for me. It's kind of like a spend down or kind of like mid-range position other than Bain.
Just got news. Alex Caruso listed available to play. We're 30 minutes out from lock now, so we'll go FanDuel build, DraftKings build, QQs. So make sure you get your questions into the live stream chats on Discord. I will be checking that first in the RotoGrinders Discord, and then next up, I will be going to the YouTube chat. So make sure you hit the like button, and you can, and then we'll be going to the YouTube chat for questions. How many viewers do we got in YouTube? Over 200. So I want 75 likes before we go to the YouTube chat for questions. Smash that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll be going over there as well. I'm hitting you with another 1v1 here that I think I kind of like this setup where Tim gives a nice breakdown. Then I go to Taylor for a 1v1 that I think a lot of people will be considering in cash. So if you say you got the $200, it doesn't matter. Herbert Jones or Klay Thompson in cash for you today?
I would go Jones just because Zion's out. He should see. I think we had him at 34 minutes. Klay's been awful, and I think Curry's going to play. So I think Herb is the call there.
I like that one as well. Small forward position, Tim. You can play Bain here as well, but this is kind of where it starts opening up a little bit because I feel like these first few positions, you got only like a couple options, but there's a lot of different ways you could go here at small forward.
Yeah, I think, obviously, like I said, you're playing Bain at shooting guard or small forward. Same thing with Pat Connaughton. I think he should be in your cash game lineup at either small forward or shooting guard. Then it gets a little bit trickier. Brandon Ingram, he's definitely a strong cash game play. I think he's a strong tournament play as well. Keldon Johnson, same thing. And then Najee Marshall, like we'll talk about him on DK. He's a little bit better of a play on DraftKings, but Najee Marshall, I think, is a really, really strong play on both sites. So he's 4,800. So he's a punt. Champagne, 4,500. He might be better for tournaments, but I still think if he starts, I still really think he's cash viable.
I think that's a great question. That was the one I was hoping. Great setup, because that's exactly the one I was hoping to send to Taylor. Taylor, you got $4,800 remaining, and Champagne, you believe he's going to be the starter. And you could always, if you have that 4,800, you could always pivot to Malik Beasley if he ever isn't for some reason, or Jonathan Kuminga if you can afford it. But Najee Marshall or Champagne, assuming Champagne is the starter.
I still think I'd go in cash Najee, assuming he's the starter as well. In tournaments, though, I think Champagne's probably going to be lower owned at this point. So the way
I like that call quite a bit as well. Power forward, Tim. We got Zach Collins as a core play here. He's got a nice price tag with the power forward eligibility on FanDuel. Do you agree with that tag? Are you playing Collins in FanDuel cash? And then who are you kind of like, if you get one spend up today, are you prioritizing Giannis? Are you prioritizing Luka, or trying to stick in that mid range?
So I made two builds, and I'm still kind of figuring out what I want to do. I've got one where I really just stuck with the mid range, and then I have one that I built with Giannis. Giannis is my favorite spend up if I want to go all the way up, and I think you can do that pretty easily. So yeah, I mean it's tough to say, but yes, I'm 100% playing Zach Collins in cash. He fits all the builds, whether you want to go mid-range, stars and scrubs, it doesn't matter. I think he's the best power forward play in terms of points per dollar. Our projections agree with that. I think Karl Anthony Towns is fine for cash also. TJ and I were talking about Wemby for cash, and I don't think you have to play Wemby in cash. Our projections like him quite a bit. I think he's a little bit high variance player. I think he's going to be over owned in tournaments as well. So I don't know. I'm not really on him tonight, but that could end up being obviously a pretty horrible take.
Yeah, I wrote up Wembanyama as a great tournament play earlier in the day, but he was earlier on projecting for single digit ownership, and now that he's up in the 30+%, it does limit him a little bit for me. Finally, center position. Who are you prioritizing here? You can obviously play Collins at the center if you want. Who are you going to in this spot?
Yeah, so you can play Zach Collins in this spot if you play two other power forwards. I like Brook Lopez quite a bit because I do want to get pieces of that game just because those two teams are very high paced and they're very bad defensively. So I do have some interest in Brook Lopez, maybe not for cash, but I think he is viable. We haven't talked much about Jaren Jackson. I actually like him better than Wemby. So I don't know, 8,100. I think he's a better play. And then probably Rudy Gobert too. I like quite a bit.
All good calls. Taylor, do you want to kind of start us in reverse order here? We'll talk tournaments. If you want, you can start at the center position and kind of work your way back to point guard.
Yeah, I do like the Brook Lopez call. On FanDuel, you get 3 for a block, and I think he has 13 blocks in his last 2 games, so he has a huge ceiling, even with Giannis back tonight, presumably. Wembanyama I'm fine with just because his usage goes up with Vassell out. Ownership could be a concern, maybe more so on DK, but I don't mind him either. I do like the Jaren Jackson call as well. 3 points or a block helps him a lot. I don't mind paying all the way up for Bam. He's been kind of doing everything for the Heat with Hero out. Should be significantly lower on than the other kind of mid-range center plays. So I think that's fine. And then Valanciunas, I think, for 67 with no Zion. Maybe he gets a few more minutes, a few more rebounds. Usage should go up a little bit. He's a better play on DK also, but Fanduel 6,700 is not too bad either for him.
Need 17 more likes in YouTube for us to start being able to take some QQs from there too. So let's get us up to 75. We got almost 300 people watching. Should be nice and easy. Power forward, small forward. Who do you got here? Who are you prioritizing in tournaments?
I think it's a Giannis night for me. He's underpriced, especially on FanDuel, 10-8. Does a little bit of everything. The blocks and steals thing helps him as well. I'm okay with Andrew Wiggins. I don't know what's going on with him. He's like forgotten how to play basketball, but he's 4,800. There's a chance Curry doesn't play. I think he's fine either way. You can play him in either forward spot. Keldon Johnson, more usage without Vassell. Karl Anthony Towns, I like that call. He's kind of a borderline core play for me on DK. Still fine on FanDuel, though. And Dario Saric should start again, presumably with Draymond out. He's still affordable around the industry. His minutes have been up, and I think he's decent in GPPs.
I like it. Small forward.
Small forward, Brandon Ingram. Big usage bump without CJ and Zion. I'm on Pat Connaughton for 4K flat. Kind of by default. It's kind of another shaky value slate. The Bucks have 3 wings out of the lineup tonight. Great game environment, so I think I'm okay with that in all formats. Keldon Johnson, Kyle Anderson is okay, kind of as a last piece type of thing. He's a doer of things and should see like mid-20s minutes, so I think that's okay in tournaments. He's a doer of things. Najee, we got news Najee's actually not starting. They're starting Jordan Hawkins, so I'm less into Najee than I was 5 minutes ago, but he should also potentially be lower owned as a result of that news. So in a tournament, I still think it's fine. And Jalen Williams, another doer of things, decent salary on FanDuel, and you can play him at guard or forward.
I like it. Shooting guard position, who do you like?
Shooting guard,
and feel free to kind of lump in shooting guard, point guard if you want, just so you're not kind of repeating the same guys.
Yeah, Connaughton here, Herb Jones. I think he's probably more in play as a shooting guard on FanDuel. Klay Thompson, like we talked about, is just cheap over here, so that's fine. Kyrie, both positions. I do think Edwards is the better play if you can afford him for 800 more. 33% usage. Minnesota should potentially cruise in that game. Derrick Rose, if you want to like fully punt, he's questionable, but there's a chance he plays, and Memphis is down like all their players, especially in the backcourt. So I think you can do that in like a large field tournament and hope for the best. And then Jordan Hawkins, again, he's starting. Projections should improve as a result, and the ownership probably won't catch up.
So I'm running a 20 entry max today, and I'm planning on playing Jacob Gilyard in 95% of my lineup, so 19 of 20. And then I think I'm going to throw Derrick Rose in the one that I'm not playing Jacob Gilyard today. That's sort of my plan on doing things. The other thing I'm doing in tournaments today is I'm fading anybody not like other than a couple cheap Pelicans. I'm fading all those expensive guys like Brandon Ingram and that whole game basically because I think Minnesota's going to blow them out today. I could easily see New Orleans only scoring like 90 points. And so I actually plan on trying to get to a lot of the cheap guys today and then people later on in the slate. Let's pivot to DraftKings here. Keep hitting that like button on YouTube. Starting position by position for cash at the point guard position. I need help building my cash game lineup today, Tim. I got my 20 entry max set in. However, I have yet to build my cash game, and it's in 19 minutes. So I'm pulling a Kevin Roth here outside of it being cash, and I need you to help me build my lineup, Tim.
Yeah, so it's still Gilliard at point guard at 4,800 on DraftKings. On cash, I don't think there's any debate about that. If you're looking for other like guard options, we haven't really talked much about Shea, SGA, but I think he's in the conversation at least. Same thing with Luka. But then there's also like, just the mid-range guys like Mike Conley and Dyson Daniels that I like quite a bit. So it kind of depends on where you're prioritizing your salary. I'm going to be paying up for Giannis in DraftKings cash, so I'm not going to be able to get to Luka, or SGA. But if you're going a different direction, those would be good guys to get to.
I like it.
Yeah.
Shooting guard, it's Bane, but who are maybe some other guards that you might like to fill out the rest of your lineup?
Yeah, so maybe Anthony Edwards, Kyrie, Brandon Ingram, they're all right there. But if you need like a cheap punt, it's Malik Beasley. I'm pretty sure, even though that sounds really weird. I don't know. I would try to make it so that you're not playing Malik Beasley in cash. But if you absolutely have to, I guess he's okay. Same kind of deal with like Zaire Williams. I wouldn't be trying to roster him in cash, but if he's like, your last piece at 4,100, I think he's okay.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too. What about the small forward position? This is where we all of a sudden have to start making some decisions, unless, of course, we're playing Bane here.
Yeah, unless you're playing Bane, and Ingram, then it's guys like Pat Connaughton, Kyle Anderson, Jaden McDaniels, Champagne, like I mentioned, 4,300. I think he would be fine if he was starting. Those would be like your value options. I really like Keldon Johnson tonight, but he's not going to make a cash team. He's more of a large field GPP play. Same thing with Anthony Edwards. But yeah, it's definitely Bane and Ingram, then maybe Slow-Mo and Pat Connaughton as your punts.
Power forward position. You mentioned you are paying up for some Giannis today. What was with the decision? How'd you prioritize Giannis over Victor Wembanyama today?
Well, I mean, it's just the game environment. I think I think that's the best game environment on the board. So I think Giannis has like, a very, very safe floor and a humongous ceiling. So I think that's a pretty easy one. With Najee not starting, I want to see how many minutes he loses, because we had him projected for 26, but I don't think that's updated since he's not been in the starting lineup.
I believe it's at 24 now.
All right, so that's not too bad of a downgrade. So I might keep him in as like a power forward / forward option in cash. So yeah, and then if you're not comfortable with that, then you could still do Kyle Anderson and Pat Connaughton at power forward on DK as a punt play.
Yeah, and the part I don't mind about getting Najee in there is, as I kind of am expecting this one to be a blowout, I think he gets that blowout run for this team today. Center position, obviously we still have Giannis and Wemby here. Are you playing Giannis at the power forward or center? And then are you also getting to Zach Collins on this site as well?
I'm actually not getting to Zach Collins on DK. I mean, he certainly is viable. I prefer slightly Rudy Gobert, like in that mid range. I don't mind Bismack Biyombo either. I love Karl Anthony Towns. I think he is in an amazing spot tonight. It's just hard because there's Bane, Ingram, Towns, like all in that upper mid range. So it's like hard to play all three of those guys and Giannis. Like it's like, it's hard to do that. So you have to like kind of delete one of those guys if you want to play Giannis. But there are really good builds that you can make without Giannis too, so that you can play all of those mid-range upper tier players. So yeah, right now I have Rudy Gobert, but I think Biyombo would be fine for cash games also.
You'd rather Biyombo over Brook Lopez?
How much is Brook on DK.
Exact same price.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good call. Yeah, I think on DK I'd prefer Biombo, but that is a good question. It's a lot closer than I think our projections have it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I'm giving my slight lean to Lopez. I think that's who I want to go with in this spot.
I like
but
that. I like that. I like that game the most. So
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm not really worried about pace and like shootouts and cash games. I'm worried about that, like game stacking in tournaments. So in tournaments, definitely I would prefer Lopez.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Guard positions here, Taylor. Take me through some of your favorite tournament plays.
Yeah, I'm going to eat the Gilliard chalk. I'm on a lot of Conley, unfortunately, even though he probably has no ceiling at all in tournaments. Good matchup. We think there's a chance they blow them out, which is not good for Conley necessarily, but at least they're probably on the winning side of that. A guy I don't mind mixing in as a value is Conchar. He's 3,700. You can play him at point guard or small forward. We mentioned the Grizz are down all their wings essentially, and all the forwards and all the centers. So he's fine. The Spurs are like the best matchup on the slate. So Conchar in tournaments should probably be pretty low owned. So I like that quite a bit. Trey Jones as well. We had him doubtful to begin the day. He's off the injury report, so likely to play. Presumably off the bench as he's been all year, but shouldn't be owned at all in tournaments. So that's another good game environment, I think. The Grizz are not the defensive team they used to be. So the Spurs side of that game looks pretty good. Shooting guard, I think the Bane thing is just something you eat in tournaments, probably. Same with Ingram. But I don't mind the Ingram fade just because that game could easily get out of hand. Minnesota's the best defensive team in the league. Ingram does get a lot of usage. He should still be okay, but if it's Bane or Ingram that you're thinking of fading, I think I'm just going to eat Bane just because they're playing San Antonio and he should play 36 plus minutes. Edwards as well on the right side of that Pelicans game. Looks quite good. Should not be too popular, I wouldn't think. Another punt to consider is just Zaire Williams. Maybe starts for the Grizz, I think, at small forward, and they just don't have anyone else to run out there. So I think that's another tournament guy to consider as a cheapie.
Yeah, I like that one as well. Take me over to the forward position. Who are some of your favorite tournament flyers here?
Yeah, I think small forward's a pay down spot, unless you're playing Ingram or Bane, of course, or Keldon Johnson. Like Tim said, that's a good tournament play as well. Should see more usage without Vassell. Connaughton you can play here. Kyle Anderson you can play here. Jaime Jaquez is a guy we haven't talked about. He's playing like mid-20s minutes off the bench for Miami. That's probably the worst game to target tonight from a total standpoint and a pace standpoint, but he's been decent and the minutes are okay. Still cheap on DK, so I don't hate that at either forward spot.
And then anybody who only has center eligibility, you're looking to take some shots on here. I thought I included all the guys that I had excluded, but it looks like I did not here yet. It's over on DraftKings. But as you can see, this is exactly who I'm looking at in tournaments. Giannis, Wemby, Jaren Jackson Jr., Chet, Zach Collins, Biyombo, Lopez, Saric, and Andre Drummond as the only guys I'm looking at in tournaments.
Yeah, I think the ownership, if it flocks to Biyombo, then Lopez is the natural pivot, like you guys were talking about in a tournament. Better game environment, and he's been quite good of late. Vucevic is okay. I'm not really into Bulls in general, but he's like kind of the one Bull on my radar just because he's been a decent source of double-doubles, and he's cheap enough to consider. Bam, again, is fine, cheaper on DK. And Valanciunas, if you think the Pelicans can keep it close enough, 6,300 is reasonable enough for him, I think.
Yeah, I agree. He was somebody that I was considering firing into my pool as well, and then just never got to. We'll start taking some QQs here. First things first, going over to the live stream Discord chat in of course, RotoGrinders Discord. This is more of a comment than a question, but I hate Jordan Poole. How many times can I take his over and be so wrong? Just make a shot, homie. Great point. Jordan Poole is absolutely horrific, but has provided some of the best memes in the NBA so far, just continuously making himself look like an idiot, talking smack in timeouts about how it's his team while not looking at the play and missing it. Just some really great stuff. Tim, next question's for Cash. Can you fade the Pelicans in Cash? I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy. Hear me out. Obviously, Cash, you're wanting to just look at projections, but Najee Marshall's no longer starting. He was our favorite one. Minnesota might be the best defensive team in the league. This could turn into a blowout, and it gives us the chance to wait for some potential late news as the only first game. I realize most of those things are tournament reasonings not to play somebody, but I don't think that's a crazy thing to do.
Maybe it's not that crazy. I wouldn't do it. I would have at least one Pelican on my cash game team.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I don't think it's crazy, but I have two. I have Dyson Daniels and Najee Marshall right now.
Yeah, and then there's Brandon Ingram too that I think is a spectacular cash game play.
Actually, you know what? I think it's a little bit dangerous with Trey Jones back, but I'm gonna just put Champagnie in this cash game lineup for right now. Instead of Najee Marshall since he's not starting. What do you think of that right now? Just like, so you have to make that choice. The one game starts in 7 minutes. Are you playing Champagnie in a power forward position or Najee Marshall at the exact same price on DraftKings?
Yeah, it's
and then of
tough.
Course just rebuilding if he doesn't start.
It's pretty tough. I think in cash you stick with Najee.
Plus, you said like you think he'll get blowout run, so that's should be appealing for performance.
That's a good point. All right, I'm gonna put. Maybe I should just put Biombo and Najee on this team, and then I'll just switch the tournament ones in it to Brook Lopez and Champagnie, and just split it into two a little bit, tournament and cash, because I definitely like the Lopez and Champagnie sides better, but that's just my brain. My tournament brain going. That's 100% what that is. FanDuel Cash, Tim, Jovel, Kyrie, and Champagnie, or Cat, Conley, and Herb Jones. I think you're definitely going with that second one.
The second one by a mile.
Single entry Taylor on DraftKings, Kyle Anderson, or Champagnie.
Oh God, I feel like both kind of capped. Tournament-wise, maybe Champagnie, because he get blown out, like the game happens to blow out, he presumably is on the floor. Kyle Anderson, probably not for Minnesota. So I guess I'd lean Champagnie, but don't love it.
Another one, DraftKings single entry, Brandon Ingram or Anthony Edwards?
Definitely Edwards in a tournament.
Yeah, I feel that way as well. DraftKings GPP, sticking with you, Taylor, Champagnie, or Najee Marshall?
Go Marshall there. I feel more confident in his minutes, even off the bench.
FanDuel GPP, sticking with you, Taylor. Choose one. Rank Wiggins, Slow-Mo, Kuminga, and Najee.
Wiggins, Slow-Mo,
He
Kuminga,
started
Najee.
And played really well last game.
Yeah, he might come off the bench. I saw Curry is expected to play, so probably not getting him out tonight. Kuminga in a tournament, interesting. I think I rank Najee first. Wiggins second, Kuminga third, and then Slow-Mo.
All right, switching over to the RotoGrinders YouTube chat. Thank you, Tim, for starting to get some of those questions there, making sure people get them answered in time. Any thoughts on Saric and Jaquez on DraftKings? Taylor, you mentioned Jaquez a little bit. Who would you choose? One of them in a tournament, Saric or Jaquez?
I think Saric has the better minutes upside, assuming he's still starting, so I'd go that way.
Is Najee Marshall okay for cash with him not starting? Yes, he still is. Wesley wants to know, Tim, Towns or Butler, FanDuel Cash?
It's Towns for me. I don't like that Miami game much at all. It's definitely Towns for me.
I'm with you. I just X'd out that entire game today. Let's see. Yes, Steph Curry is going to play. FanDuel Cash, Tim, Sohan or Dyson Daniels?
Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, me too as well. I think you could consider Sohan before that Trey Jones news, but shout out to you, Taylor, because I actually didn't even catch the news that Trey Jones was going to play. I thought he was going to be out today, which is one of the reasons I liked I liked Champagne so much more. Not even a superhero guy, but that Spider-Man poster is amazing. Yeah, I like it a lot. It's got Carnage in one eye and Venom in the other eye. TJ, what are your projections on DeRozan tonight? Well, I just use the NBA projection, like the RotoGrinders NBA projections, and then I manually adjust a few players for NBA, but I have 0% DeRozan in 20 lineups. I X'd out that entire game. No Miami players, no Chicago players for me today. QQ, DK, GPP, need a utility player, 4,100 or less. Who do you got, Taylor?
DK, GPP, 4,100 or less. The first name that came to mind was Conchar. I assume he's not already in your lineup. So, yeah, I'd go that way, I guess.
I like that. I like Conchar in some DK, GPPs today quite a bit. All right, what do we got next here? Walk is in 2 minutes. Make sure to get all of your lineups in. Is Connor Joe a good value on DraftKings? What about Connor Joe? Is that somebody you considered in GPPs, Taylor?
I assume it's Isaiah Joe.
That's what I meant. Isaiah Joe, Connor Joe is
Colorado Rockies legend Connor Joe.
Yeah.
I was so confused.
I saw the Joe, and then that just like brain went Connor. I guess I haven't thought about Isaiah Joe enough since NBA started.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Joe made like all 7 of his threes the other night and kind of broke the slate. I think that's kind of a chase. So it's possible, but I'd go Conchar if I'm shopping in that range.
Yeah, definitely play Connor. Don't play Connor Joe. He's probably not very good at basketball. Zachary says Santi Aldama is going to smash. I don't mind the Aldama call in tournaments. Do you like Trey Jones in a DK GPP, in a Fanduel GPP, Taylor?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to play him. So yeah, by default, kind of.
Tim, Beantown wants to know. Beaner wants to know, why don't we like this Milwaukee-Chicago game? Miami-Chicago. Jeez, I keep misspeaking today.
Just because it's, I think it's going to clearly be the slowest paced game on the entire slate. There's some really good pace up spots on this slate, and that game is going to be the slowest. I think pretty sure it's the lowest total too. So that's just, there's only so many games. And you have to make choices, and that's the clear one to cross off in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree. Like that Milwaukee and Dallas game is almost 40-point higher of a total than that Miami-Chicago game. There's only 3 teams on the slate with a total sub 110. One of them is the Pelicans, who are without half of their team. And then the other 2 are both Miami and Chicago. So Brian Marshall asking, no vengeful Jimmy Butler and TK GPPs. I don't think for any of us. It kind of sounds like all of us are Xing out that entire game. And it looks like we've hit all the QQs, and we have also hit lock. So thank you so much to everyone who tuned in today. We got a full day coming of some NFL content tomorrow. Tim is on Grinders Live in the morning. Squirrel is away for the King of the Beach along with Luch. So good luck to both of them in the live final. But I will be taking Squirrel's place on the GPP Final Take show in the morning, and then we got the Crunch Time crew coming right after, followed by a full day of Sunday content. Then we'll be back for NBA Crunch Time, followed by a late night pre-lock on Sunday night. So tons and tons of great football and basketball content coming tomorrow. Make sure you stay tuned in. On behalf of myself and Tim and Taylor, and I was going to say somebody behind the scenes, and then I realized it's me. I'm the guy behind the scenes. So thanks so much to everyone who tuned in today. We will see you again tomorrow. Good luck in all your contests. Peace.